Hi, my name is Steve. I'm a field applications engineer with MultiTech Systems. Today's video is on MultiTech's DeviceHQ. DeviceHQ is a free, cloud-based device management solution that simplifies and scales the management of MultiTech's latest generation of networking devices. It allows users to remotely monitor, upgrade, and configure an entire device population from a single location. This will reduce cost and complexity of device management and manage the health of deployed assets from a single web-based application. Once a device is configured to communicate with DeviceHQ, it will periodically send device information and statistics to DeviceHQ and check for firmware and/or configuration updates to download. The frequency at which devices connect to the platform is configurable on a per-device basis, although DeviceHQ does enforce a minimum check-in interval of once every 240 minutes or once every 4 hours. Some of the highlights of DeviceHQ is it provides dashboard notification and device group views. Firmware and configuration updates can be executed with a few simple clicks on individual devices or user-defined groups of devices across an entire device population. You can view managed devices on a map based on GPS location for devices that have GPS, or manually defined location, which we can program into the device. The supported products for DeviceHQ are the MultiConnect RCell100 series routers and the MultiConnect Conduit AEP. So for getting started, there are two basic steps required to begin using DeviceHQ. And the first one is to register for a DeviceHQ account. So to register for a DeviceHQ account, you would just browse to DeviceHQ, which is www.devicehq.com. And once the page loads, you can notice kind of in the lower right, you'll see register for account. So you could select register for account and go through the form and register for account. And then it will send you an email with your account key. You'll use your account key to put into your devices to register to DeviceHQ. The second step is to enable device management on the device. And so as I log into DeviceHQ, either you can get your device key from the email that DeviceHQ sent, or you can go into your account information and you can copy your key and then log into your device, whether it be your MultiConnect RCell or your Conduit, and go into administration and then remote management. Once in remote management, you're going to want to enable the feature, and then down on the account key, paste your key. You also have the ability to enable SSL encryption, secure socket layer, which will encrypt the check-in data when it does check into DeviceHQ. Also on the right side, we have a check-in interval, which the minimum is the 240 minutes, but you can certainly set that to any higher value you want. For example, if you only want the devices to check in once or twice a day. But once you configure the remote management section, just select Submit. And once you select Submit, you'll be prompted to save and restart the device. And once the device restarts, it will check in to DeviceHQ. So as we log into DeviceHQ, you'll notice three primary sections. And we have the Alerts section on the left column, which gives us any alerts as well as actions. And then we see the bottom section is the map section where our devices show up on a map. And above that, we have the pie charts, which is devices by last check-in and devices by signal strength. We can manipulate the chart types to be pie or column type charts. And then also there are different chart types by statistics or by attributes. And when we select attributes, it's devices by firmware or devices by product or model number. The other option here we have is devices by settings. And when we access devices by settings, we have devices by groups, which we can define different groups of devices or devices by check-in interval. So in my opinion, by far the most useful information will be selecting devices by statistics. One of the biggest advantages to DeviceHQ is when you log in and get to the home page, we'd like to see the pie chart to be all green for devices by last check-in, meaning that they've all checked in their allotted time frame. So if there's any red in the pie chart, that means we have a device that is not checked in, and it's overdue for check-in. And we notice that over on the alert side, where we have a single device that is overdue to check-in, and I can click on this and it will bring me to that device. And similarly, I can come over to the pie chart and click on the red overdue section and click on that, and that will also bring me to the device that's overdue to check-in. So the first thing you notice is there is a little kind of a red or pink tint hue on this device indicating that it has not checked in. And if I look at the column chart here, which these are all the columns that are displayed on the device page, if I want to display by last check-in, we can see the last check-in was 22 days ago, and the check-in interval is twice a day or once every 12 hours. So this device is overdue to check in and hasn't checked in, and that's why it's given us this indication of red and also the red slice on the pie chart. And as we look at devices by signal, this is devices by cellular signal strength, and the vast majority have 3 bars and have very decent signal strength, but we see a certain portion of devices here, actually 3 of them, that have no signal, and that's because some of these devices are conduit gateways that have a Ethernet WAN connection, so they don't have cellular. And so there's nothing alarming there. It's just that those do not provide a signal strength, so that's black. If we move down to the map view, we can see here that there are 2 devices in this map cluster, in this device cluster, and I can click on the device cluster, and I can click on it again. Just we see the 2 devices, and notice that half of the device shows green, which corresponds to the latest check-in, and meaning both these devices have been checking in. Otherwise, the left half of that device would show red, and also that these both have 3 bars of signal strength because they show yellow. I can click on these devices to see specifically what they are. That one is a multi-connect R cell that's defined as Steve's R cell, and this other one is a MTR Lat1 multi-connect R cell. So, and I can further drill down and see exactly where this device is at within an accuracy of a couple meters. And by clicking on that, I can see that there are 2 devices there. So both of these devices are cellular routers that have GPS receivers in them, so they provide GPS information to DeviceHQ. Knowing that our customers, many of the devices they use may not have inherent GPS, it still is possible to put them on the map here, and by programming in their location. And so any static devices or that are at static locations that don't have a GPS receiver, we can still get them to show up on the map, so you can so that they will show up. So also on the home screen here in DeviceHQ, we have a file section, and these files are the configuration files that I would upload from a device that become available to download for any other devices. So an example of that would be I'd go into my device, and this is a MultiTech R cell. And I would come down to the Administration tab, and under Save and Restore, I can save a configuration to file. So this is going to save a config file of the device to my PC. And now, when I go into DeviceHQ and select the Files option, I want to upload this config file to DeviceHQ. And I would do that by selecting New Configuration, give it a name, give it a description. And then I would need to choose the file from where it was downloaded in my PC. And lastly, I would select the upload option. So now this file is being uploaded to DeviceHQ and will become an available configuration file for the RCell product line. We also have an administration tab here, and in the administration tab, this has to do with who are the administrators that have the ability to administrate DeviceHQ. And we have two different roles, and one is manager, the other is user. I'm logged in as manager, and that gives me full control to add devices, delete devices, and schedule firmware updates and configuration updates and device reboots. You can also add users with a user role that have the ability to log in and just look at DeviceHQ. They don't have the ability to schedule any updates or configurations. Another thing I'll point out is in the admin tab here is there's a notification section. And aside from logging into DeviceHQ and looking at the pie charts, DeviceHQ has the ability to notify you via SMS text message or through email. And that configuration is done here and then through the settings. And when I select the settings options, I basically create a recipient group of who gets these notifications. And so if I just can edit the group I have defined a group name of Clarence Darbo, and you put in the cell phone number and email address, and you can add multiple recipients to this group. Once you have defined a group, now you can come in and you can define which events you want SMS or email notification for. And the options are low cellular signal strength, a missed check-in, which to me is optimal, and high data usage, and any failed actions, a failed firmware update or failed configuration update, and also anytime one of the devices reboots, it can notify you as well. And so, for example, if I was to select the low signal strength option, I would need to enable that feature and then define a threshold where I want to be notified. And you would put in the recipient group and then how often you want to be notified, which when it's either every time that device checks in or just once in a day or week or monthly. And in the device logs option here, we have the option to configure devices to upload their log files when they check in. And in that sense, the DeviceHQ would have the latest log file for that device as it checked in. Some of the other options here relate to different products. For example, we have an app store, and the app store specifically relates to our conduit gateways, which is a IoT type developer gateway where our customers can design and develop an application that runs on the device. And in that sense, the application can be uploaded to DeviceHQ or the App Store. The devices can be labeled as either public or private. And the private apps are only available to the user that created them, whereas if they're defined as public, they're available to anybody that logs in and uses DeviceHQ. Regarding these applications, we go to the Developer tab, and really the Developer tab is where these applications are managed. For example, here's where you define whether they're public or private, and here's where you would do revision control if you want to update revisions of these different applications. So again, now you have a feel for the home screen and the capabilities and the information displayed on the home screen. Next, we'll select the Devices button here, and the Devices button is going to show all my devices. I believe I have 7 devices right now registered to my personal account, And as you look at this, you can see that the top one has a little bit of a red tint. That's the one that's been missing the check-in and is overdue. And then the rest of them have a little bit of a green tint indicating that things are okay and they've been checking in on time. I can double click on any of these devices to get more information. If I double click on the device on the left column, you can see a lot of additional information about the device, including its model number, serial number, firmware. If it's got GPS, it'll give you the latitude, longitude, last check-in, the next check-in, the uptime, its IP address, a bunch of information. And here we have the map view of this device. I can select the check-ins tab and I get a history of check-ins. So I can, generally look to see that it has been checking in every 4 hours. If I select the signal, I get cellular signal strength over time. And it is a fact that cell towers can breathe. The cell signal isn't necessarily consistent all the time. It can vary somewhat, and here's where you can get a feel for that variation. Under the network tab, we give approximate daily data usage, both transmitted and received, and then for the wide area network and for the local area network. And then if you are scheduling log files to be uploaded, you might find them here under the device files. So once we're looking at a single device like this, and this screen is where we also can schedule things to happen. So I can schedule a firmware update, and with the firmware updates, MultiTech manages all the firmware and uploads the latest firmwares to DeviceHQ. So these versions of firmware were all put up here by MultiTech. We can upgrade a config file, which would be one of the configuration files that I just recently uploaded to DeviceHQ. And now I can download that config file and install it into any other of my devices on DeviceHQ, assuming it's the proper model number. I can schedule a reboot for a device on its next check-in. I can request device logs, or on the conduit gateways, I can install an application or uninstall an application. So for example, if I was to schedule, a reboot, it's going to ask me, device will be scheduled for reboot on next check-in, are you sure? And I'll say yes. And now that will show up as a scheduled, it'll show up as a scheduled action right here, as well as on the home page. And that would be the same for a firmware update or a configuration file download. Those will show up under actions, and 2 devices now have a reboot scheduled. So that's fine if you want to schedule things for a single device, but if you're managing a fleet of devices and maybe want to either update firmware or send a configuration file, that can be accomplished too. And you can do that either by just selecting the devices, or we also have a filter option where we can filter devices. And if I select the filter tab, for example, I can filter devices by firmware. There are some hard set filters in there and actions, which should be upgrade or config or reboot. I can select or filter devices by firmware, or even by product or model number. So if I select a specific product, it's going to bring me to that device. And now if there are multiple devices here, I could click this top box and it will select them all. Once I have the devices selected, from here I can go to the tasks option, and for example, I could update the firmware. And if I schedule the firmware update for these selected devices, I just pick the firmware file I want, which in my case would be the latest, and I would say OK. You can also set up your own filters here, and aside from these default filters that are provided in DeviceHQ, you can create your own. And one option is to click on the groups and go to the unassigned, And you can create your own filters, and I created one that says USA, and I put this device in there in that group. And then you can filter devices by that group, which could be, you know, by device, it could be by customer, it could be by geographical location, for whatever way you want to filter the device and apply any tasks to it. And then I'll click the filter tab to turn off the filter and show me all the devices. Let's see here, if I double click on Steve's R-Cell, I do want to show that you do have the ability under Edit. This is where, if the device did not have GPS, you could put in the longitude and latitude. You can really just type an address in here and it will use Google Maps to put you on a map. You also have a description field, and this description field is something that you can use to show, that will show up in DeviceHQ and will allow you to filter by that field as well. Steve's R-Cell, that's my description field. We also have the ability to send notification based on data plan or data usage, and this is cellular data usage. So I have the ability to specify a data plan or a custom data plan, and then send a notification when it gets to a certain percentage of that data plan. So if I had a 5 megabyte a month plan and, you know, set it to 80%, it'll notify me when I hit 80% of that data usage, and it'll send me a text or email, depending on how it's set up, to notify me. And this is on a per device basis, right? This is because some of the different devices might have different data plans. So in conclusion, DeviceHQ is a free device networking management service that's cloud-based, and it allows us to manage a fleet, whether it's 1 or 10,000 devices, and it supports our MultiConnect R-Cell 100 or the MultiConnect Conduit AEP products today, and MultiTech is considering adding additional products to that in the future. What's nice about it is you can log in and looking at the dashboard, you can quickly see if these devices are alive and well, or if one is overdue to check in and needs further analysis. You're able to see device signal strength and signal strength over history. You can apply certain actions to these devices to manage them by updating the firmware or changing the configuration. And these actions will show up on the left column here, and not only before they're done, but also after they're done. It will tell you whether they were successful or failed. DeviceHQ, by no means that these devices maintain a connection with DeviceHQ. They check in periodically, and that frequency is configurable by the user. And so as they check in, there is some data usage, in particularly if they're checking in over cellular. And for example, if we did not check the SSL or secure socket layer button in the configuration screen, the check-in data usage is 1.5 kilobytes. If we do select SSL for the device check-in, the data usage is 3.5 kilobytes. So it's still very minimal data usage. The configuration files, if they're downloaded or uploaded to DeviceHQ and then downloaded to a particular device, are generally in the 5 to 6 kilobyte range. So those files are also very small and almost negligible. Firmware updates, which are managed by MultiTech, meaning we push the firmware updates up to DeviceHQ and make them available. Those tend to be much larger files, and those are in the 25 megabyte size. So a little caution there if you were to update firmware, device firmware, over DeviceHQ is that make sure your cellular data plan can handle the 25 megabytes per month. Just because you don't want to do any cellular overages. So DeviceHQ is a great tool for giving you visibility to your devices and the health of those devices in the field. And the best part is DeviceHQ is free. It's a free cloud-based management solution that's provided when you purchase our networking products. So with that, thank you. Wait till my next video I look forward to. And have a great day.